Welcome, welcome, welcome. How are you guys? This is Eric McClenahan. This is The Whole Elephant. I'm so glad that you're here, to check it out, to go on a journey. We're on a journey of seeing different perspectives in life, trying to get a perspective on the whole elephant, not just seeing things from our perspective. Our guest today is my friend Craig Farestveit. Craig is a realtor here in the La Crescenta, La Cañada area. And he put out a book recently that we're going to talk about coming up here. And what was fascinating to me was how much I didn't know about the real estate process. I mean, the book goes into great detail, and he's such a great storyteller, and it's a really fast and easy read. But I was like, man, I had no idea that this much went into the real estate process. And so I wanted to chat with him today about that so we can learn and grow and have our minds expanded a little bit about the real estate process, and then also talk about God and spiritual things like we always do, and see where Craig is coming from. So I hope you guys enjoy the chat. Craig, thanks for coming on, man. This is exciting.
I've told you, you're one of my favorite people in the world.
Thank you. That's a good way to start this podcast, actually. I wish every guest would start the podcast that way. That's very nice. How are you? That's a loaded question right now.
Yeah, it's November 4th.
Yeah, we're just to put everyone on the same page. Yeah. We are pre-recording. It's November 4th. The United States is in chaos. This is not to mention COVID and all these things. It is a very loaded question today.
I think I'm actually good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I appreciate you asking.
What is the state of real estate across the U.S. or here, whatever you want to talk about it, in this COVID? What have you had to adjust to?
And I hope we don't talk about real estate the whole time.
No,
but if we start there, that's fine. Yeah. It's really weird because in April, the few cities that I work in, the number of real estate transactions just plummeted because of COVID and shut down, and that made perfect sense.
Yeah.
What doesn't make sense is May, June, and to now, it is rip-roaring.
Interesting. Prices
have gone up. The number of multiple offer situations has increased.
Yeah.
And it's just, you have to live through something to just go, I never thought that was going to happen. Yeah. Well, it has happened.
Is it people relocating within California or people coming to California? Because all I hear about is people leaving California right now. Like, I've had a ton of friends who've moved to Nashville or Oklahoma or all these things. Are people actually moving in?
I think that's just us seeing friends leave who happen to be part of a bigger subset, which is, wow, you mean I can do my job and live wherever? Mm-hmm. And then there's places they've always wanted to live.
Yeah, that's true.
And there's no ball and chain, like I got to live within 20 miles of work.
Yeah,
so I don't think it's anti-California. I think that's what it is.
Right. Is there anything that you think will continue after COVID where you've gone, hey, we changed the way we're doing this? Why weren't we always doing it this way?
I hope not, because I don't think it's worked. I don't think what we're doing right now will work forever for our clients.
Yeah.
People don't have the luxury of seeing a lot of places before they make a big decision.
Right.
Because it's so difficult
to see places. Is it like virtual tours, or is it just hard to get in places so they do it less?
If I were showing you something, I'd say, well, on Tuesday, we have a 30-minute time slot to go see this house. You need to sign this disclosure. And, I can't pick you up and take you to see 3 or 4 homes. I have to get these individual time slots where the house will be empty, and I can guarantee you'll be the only one there.
Right.
Where usually on a weekend we could see 10 homes.
Right.
So
that needs to stop as soon as possible.
Yeah, it's tough. Tough.
I want to talk about, I'm really interested in your journey even to get to this point. and I mean specifically your educational journey
Oh,
and how the heck you weaved your way into real estate.
okay.
Because I feel like I have a lot of similarities. So you have a degree in chemistry
Yep.
from UC Irvine. Who decides to get a degree in chemistry? What was the goal in the chemistry degree? Where were you mentally at that stage of your life?
So I remember the exact time when I decided to be a chemistry major. I was going to be, what was the high school group? They weren't TikTokers. They were, the girls were in a philanthropy group, but they had like a debutante ball or something at the
I have no idea.
our senior year. I was going to walk someone at one of those things.
Yeah.
And you had to say, because it was high school seniors, what's your major? Where are you going to go?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I love science, and I knew I was going to do something, I think, in science.
Yeah.
But I'm like, chemistry, that sounds cool. And I wrote it down. I swear, I just stuck with that.
And it just stuck.
So not a lot of depth to that decision.
I was thinking as I was prepping for this, what does one do with a chemistry degree?
So I went to UC Irvine, so
Yeah.
most people who were chem majors were pre-med. I did not want to be a doctor. But I thought I wanted to do inorganic research.
Oh, okay.
A great thing they make you do in your junior and senior year is do very long labs, 8-hour and 9-hour labs.
Yeah.
I wasn't in the lab, but a lab partner of mine was in the lab when the professor burst into flame. I'm like, wait, we can die in here? And all of a sudden I realized things were carcinogenic.
Yeah.
Things couldn't be exposed to the air. And do I really even like chemistry?
Yeah.
And my junior year, I realized I don't even like chemistry. I've always liked science.
Right.
But I just thought, I can't give up. I'll just get my degree, and then I'll go
Right.
to grad school and decide what
Just
I want
tough
to
it
do.
out and then figure it out.
Yeah. It's not like it's a
Was
bad
that
degree.
a scary life moment, or was that like I'll figure it out?
I think I've made, when I look back, some big decisions, and they didn't seem like big decisions. I probably should have been very afraid at the time.
Yeah.
And my siblings and I our parents were immigrants from Norway. So it's not like you went home and talked about, hey, when you're in college and you want to change to, majors, what do you think?
Yeah.
And so you just kind of were on your own. And I'm not complaining when I say that.
Right.
But we just didn't have any of that kind of direction or conversations.
Right.
So I just thought, well, if I change, it'll cost more money and I'll be here more than 4 years.
Right.
So,
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I gutted it out.
Yeah, it's interesting. I thought it was interesting because, my wife and I both have degrees that are completely meaningless to our lives now. So my wife came from El Salvador when she was going into college and went to Glendale Community College and found out there that she excelled in math and somehow got a math scholarship to go to UCLA. And
Wow.
it was a healthy scholarship,
Yeah.
but she had to be a math major to get the scholarship. So guess what? She has a math degree from UCLA. And that's the only reason. And when you come here from a third world country and you go to, and all this couched under, she wanted to be, she loves fashion. She loves fashion design.
Yeah.
Fashion, art, that's what she does now. But when you come from a third world country and you are going to UCLA, in that culture, you don't go to study fashion.
No.
You go
You
to
choose
study
one of the
something
hard
real.
subjects and you try and excel in it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. But math is a little like chemistry, I think, in that what can you do with a math degree other than teach math?
I did think about switching to math because I had I really liked math and I took some upper division math. But then it got to the point where I literally didn't know what we were talking about.
Yeah.
You could still get an A in the test.
Right.
I remember we were talking about these series.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
Yeah.
How am I going to use this? Where is this applicable? Probably very applicable.
The
but
only
I never got it.
application is then turning it around and teaching it to somebody else.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. And then my journey, I was a sports guy my entire life. I'm a worship pastor now. I love Broadway theater. I love writing musicals. I love writing songs. I love singing. I love playing the guitar. And I was football guy, and I have a PE degree, a physical education degree from Azusa Pacific. Now, my journey was a little different in that I graduated with a PE degree. I was gung-ho. I'm going to be a football coach.
Yeah.
This is my life's mission. I got hired on at Azusa Pacific where I played to be the quarterback coach right out of college.
Which is a big deal.
Yeah. And then 2 weeks into the season, I went, oh no, I don't like this. It's not.
You couldn't hide candy in your hand warmers anymore.
Exactly. I don't actually like this job. And it was panic.
Yeah.
It was complete panic. And I gutted it out the rest of the year. Assuming that at some point I was going to like it.
Yeah.
Assuming at some point in this journey, I'm going to settle into this and like it. But just like your guy on fire, part of it was sometime around that time, I went up to Cal Berkeley. My uncle was a big deal quarterback up at Cal Berkeley. And so he hosted me on a trip where I got to go during their spring ball and sit in with the coaches, sit in through meetings.
I remember his victory over Stanford.
Yeah.
Like it was yesterday.
Yes.
I was painting at an old Young Life leader's house, making extra money, had the radio on, my little blue radio with paint all over it, and it was his first start of the year.
Yes.
And the announcers were like, where have they been keeping Kevin Brown? Why hasn't he been playing all year?
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah. Okay. This is we're going way off track here, but I don't care because this story is so cool. So that game, his senior year, who else is a senior at Cal that year and loves football? None other than Adam Duritz, the lead singer of the Counting Crows.
What?
Right?
Oh, wait, I've heard this story.
Yes. So this is the craziest story. Decades later, there's a fundraiser for the Cal football team, and it says Counting Crows, 2 tickets to their concert. And my uncle, being a big supporter of the program still, goes and bids on them and wins them. It's like, cool, Counting Crows. I like the Counting Crows. So he goes to the concert and goes to pick up the tickets. And he said, "Will call Kevin Brown. Here's my ID." They get the tickets, and there's 2 tickets and 2 backstage passes. And he's like, "Well, oh, okay. I didn't know that was part of the deal. I don't really want to go backstage."
What do you do back there?
Yeah. So he goes. He and his wife, they're just like, okay, let's just go backstage. Let's just see what it's like after the show. So they show their badges that they got, and they keep getting led into these different rooms. And finally they're in this room, and they look around and they start to realize this is them and the band's family. This is not a fan situation.
Right.
And the band comes in and they're hugging their family, and the lead singer sees him from across the room and bolts over to him and goes, "Are you Kevin Brown?" He's like, what is happening? He's like, "I was a senior the year that you're a big game hero. You're a big game hero."
That's awesome.
And from that point forward, my uncle's been friends with the Counting Crows, all because of that. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
He was going thinking that he was the fan when they were the fan of him because he played in like one game where he won a game against Stanford, and it was the best part of this guy's college life. It's unbelievable. Okay, so anyway, I go up there.
We could talk for a long time about your uncle.
We could. He's an amazing man. So we go up there, and I got to hang out with the coaches. And nobody caught on fire, but my man on fire situation was I was talking to one of the young graduate assistant coaches, and he looked me dead in the eye and said, "You have to sell out to this thing." He said, "I had a baby 10 days ago, my first kid, and of those 10 days, I've slept here at the stadium 6 of those nights."
Oh my gosh.
He's like, out of my baby's 10 days on earth, I have slept here. That's
I'm
the
talking
level
to
of
you,
commitment.
some stranger, more than I talk to my baby.
Yes. He's like, that's the commitment at this level.
Wow.
And I know that not everyone runs a program like that. Not everyone does that. But that moment terrified me.
Wait, that's how Berkeley has such a stellar record?
I guess. But that moment terrified me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So one, I was terrified to do it, but then I was also terrified to leave it, because then what else am I going to do?
Yeah.
That was a scary moment. Okay, so you graduate with a chemistry degree, and then you use it by going to Fuller Seminary. What was the decision there to go to Fuller? How did that even come into your brain?
Again, left to my own devices,
Yeah.
plotting a future was not easy. And I thought, well, I know I'm going to go to grad school. What seems like it's worth a lifetime?
Yeah.
And so I thought ministry.
Mm-hmm.
And although I didn't feel like a call to ministry, it just seemed like that's the only thing that seems eternal that I could think of at that time.
Yeah.
And I even thought, unlike chemistry, if I go to seminary and I end up not being a pastor, that's an education that I would actually, I believe I would use, or at least I'd grow in.
Yeah.
As opposed to chemistry was just like being in Hell Week all the time for me.
Right.
Because I'm not really good at it.
Right.
So
did you grow up in the church?
Yes.
Did you have like religious mentors that you looked up to that you thought, I kind of want to be like this guy?
Okay, we have to go back to the Norwegian immigrant family.
Yeah.
So we went to a Lutheran church, and my youngest memories are my mom and my dad were involved. But then my dad, he was a truck driver and furniture mover, so he was gone probably 9 months out of the year when I was from 4th grade on. So he wasn't really around a lot. But going to church was important, even if our parents just dropped us off. And so at a very early age, going to church became like a thing we did, not just the family did.
Yeah.
My brother Kenneth, who's 1 year older, 3 years older than me, he would go down and sit right under where the pastor preaches.
Mm-hmm.
And in Lutheran church, they're elevated.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to do that. So I'd go down and sit there. And then pretty soon, if my brother wasn't there, I'd go down and sit there. I'm like, I just took church very seriously at a young age. Yeah.
Got it. So what was the experience like, the seminary experience? Did you enjoy it?
It was good because I thought this was more something for my entire life rather than whatever I was trying to prove to myself getting a science degree. Yeah. And I knew I wanted it to be a richer experience, like maybe your wife can identify with this, but I wasn't good as a science person, so I just had to study all the time. So all I did in college was study. Yeah. So seminary is not easy, but I wanted it to be a little more well-rounded. So it was actually good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Seminary is something I've avoided. And I don't know how it was then compared to how it is now. And I've had friends that have gone through Fuller and other seminaries, and they're beautiful people, and I love them. And then I've experienced some that just come out with wacky ideas that don't seem to translate. Well, that don't translate at all to what I'm doing, working at the church on a day-to-day basis. Yeah. And so I look at it and I go, man, what's the point? What am I gaining? I'm already in it. I'm already learning and growing on my own from the job. Why would I go? Yeah. And two, I don't want to sit in class with these people that have these wacky ideas. I don't know how it was then compared to how it is now. Well,
who's ever gonna be leading or preaching or whatever, you really want them to have gone through all of that, because I'm not so interested in someone who's memorized the Bible as opposed to really is comfortable digging into it and then explaining it to us, the lay people.
Right.
And it just takes real academic rigor.
Right.
And real academic rigor does involve some wacky,
Sure.
You have to go through some straw man arguments before
Right.
you know that something's
Right.
a real argument.
Right.
So anyway, I really respect the amount of rigor they have to go through.
Yeah.
So-
This is, I guess, if I had to pinpoint it, I feel like a lot of the people that are coming out of seminary right now, when they get out and they graduate, they think they're done.
Yeah.
They think that they have all the knowledge now, they can go do the work. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And there's a whole world of experience that they haven't applied it to yet to learn and grow from. There's a I don't know, a pretentiousness a little bit.
Yes. And all they've really done, going back to their football, is they've gotten themselves in good shape,
Yeah.
but you have no idea if they can really play.
Right.
And they don't even know they have to go play.
Right.
They have to play with a team and accomplish something,
Right.
not
right.
just do jumping jacks for the rest of their career.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Okay, so you graduate with a master's
Yeah.
from Fuller Seminary.
and like your 2 weeks of coaching
Yeah,
career, at the end of seminary, you go under care, or you're going to start doing practical work at a church.
Mm-hmm.
So in Presbyterian, you come under care of presbytery. I went to Glendale Press. They took me under. One day, next day I called them. I'm out.
One day.
Because I had so much brewing at that time in my mind, where I lived with a pastor and his family. I rented
Yeah.
a room from him. When Mike McClenahan moved out, a mutual friend of ours,
Yeah.
relative,
My uncle.
yeah, different uncle.
Yeah.
When he moved out, I moved in. It was a great deal, but I just saw so much of myself in that pastor. I'm not speaking about the pastor; he's a great pastor.
Yeah.
But my makeup, I'm like, I'm not going to be happy in this job.
Mm.
There's no end zone.
Yeah.
You don't get to like, okay, that was great.
Yeah.
It's just, yeah.
Yeah.
I just didn't see it working for me, and I definitely didn't feel called to it.
Yeah, I mean, maybe this is reductive a little bit, but I do, being in ministry, I do envy jobs that have a finite transactional nature.
Yes.
Like you can say, I sold that house, I signed this, the money's in my account, it's done.
Okay,
You know
never
what I'm
talk
saying?
about the money in your account, but yeah,
Yeah, but you sign the contracts, it's
Yes.
done. I sold that house,
there is
period.
a beginning, middle, and end that are very
Yes,
defined.
and there is not in ministry.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's an ongoing, long conversation.
Yeah. So, yeah, as is a career in anything, but
Yeah.
you're right. It's nice to have those markers along the way to say, am I doing well? Am I not doing well? So,
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you lasted one day in ministry. How did you find your way to real estate? What was that journey?
So, again, back to my own devices. I'm so envious of people who have mentors and things like that. It was just me. And I literally didn't know what to do, but I had fallen in love with a woman. And that's the other thing. I was in ministry for one day, but I literally went to Africa. I literally went to the inner city and lived in the inner city. I thought ministry, pick the thing that was the hardest to do, that's what you should do.
Right.
So
right.
it was, that wasn't really good. And so we were dating and we were serious and we got engaged. And in passing, her dad said, man, that guy would be really good in business if he ever decided to go into it.
Yeah.
I think I was probably just hungry to hear that. I'm like, really? What do you mean? And he said, yeah. I go, could I interview with someone or talk to someone about it? And pursued it that way.
Right.
And yeah, just became very enamored of it.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So you wanted to get laid. That's beautiful. What a beautiful story to becoming a real estate agent.
So Andrea had already said yes to me. We were already engaged, and she thought I was going to go into some wacky ministry, like in the inner city or some.
And she said yes before.
Absolutely.
Wow,
absolutely.
That's true love.
Yeah,
that's
so
true love.
We were already moving forward.
Okay, I take it back then.
And she thought she was going to be a quote minister's wife, and was already, and then I sort of pulled the reverse on that, and it didn't take me long. Her family was in the real estate business, and it was just 2 or 3 years where I think I matured enough to think, I think you should just love your family, but you shouldn't work with them.
Yeah.
And not that they were anything against them, but it was just, I need to grow up. We need to be our own family.
Yeah.
And we did.
So. Those early years, because we're going to get into a little bit about the book and where you are now. Those early years where you were figuring out real estate, the ins and outs, did you have early mentors that taught you the right way? Because sometimes we have mentors that teach us the right way. Sometimes we have mentors where we go, that's the wrong way, and we learn the right way.
So the only thing I had going for me when I went into real estate was that I had been a serious student. So I just thought it can't be harder than chemistry was in college. I just worked all the time.
Yeah.
Even for mediocre results back then. So I worked just really hard at it and realized, wow, I don't have a natural inclination for this.
Right.
And the first years were just brutal because I kept thinking, I sort of had a perception of what a successful person did, and I tried to do that.
Right. Right.
And my big aha moment was this one woman. She had interviewed several agents, and I was talking with her, and I thought, her husband had passed. She didn't have any money, and she had a little bit of equity, but not much. And it's hard to say these things now. You know, there's a $300,000 home.
Right.
Now that home's probably worth 1.2 or 3
of
or
course.
something. And if we sold it, she'd get about $30,000. I just thought, if she let me do some work to her house, I know I could double that. I could make her more money.
Mm-hmm.
And so I brought that up to her, and she said, I don't have that money. I'm like, okay, why don't I lend you the money? I won't charge you any interest. Just let me do this.
Mm-hmm.
She's like, what? So we did that. She made the extra money. And it was the first time in real estate where I thought, just being me, I really made a difference for someone.
Yeah.
So much before I thought, so much activity in my field is getting the business as opposed to being good at the business once you get it.
Right.
And as soon as I concentrated on, I'll just be good at what I do.
Right. Right.
And not worry about so much getting the business.
Yeah.
And that was the whole turning point for me.
I totally get that. I don't even know how to count how many years I led worship just emulating other worship
Yes.
leaders. And I looked at the big worship leaders that I'd see on YouTube or whatever and go, okay, this is what people like. So I'm just going to sing like this guy. I'm going to emote like this guy. I'm going to talk in between songs like this guy.
And I'm going to wear Bono glasses.
Yeah. And I did it for a way too long until at some point I realized, and I credit Pastor Dave, my boss, for this because he's probably the most authentic pastor that I know, where he is the same on the stage as he is off. 100%. At some point I just went, I'm not going to survive doing this by being other people.
Yeah.
I have to be myself.
Yeah.
And there are going to be people who don't love it. There are going to be people who say, I wish he would emote like he used to. But what I don't get to tell people is, but there was some fakeness to that.
Yeah.
I wasn't authentically being myself. But I think,
what was oddly freeing for me?
Yeah.
At key points in my life, I've been very thankful for counseling. And it started in seminary, actually, because it cost $5 a session for students.
Nice.
But I remember talking about it, and I don't even remember what we were talking about, but just the offhanded comment that the counselor said, oh, you walk in a room and 5% of the people don't like you. You haven't done anything. Yeah. But there's just some people. And I don't know why I found that so freeing.
Interesting.
Like, I think I was I could spend a lot of energy like trying to figure out a room and all the people. And, and it was just so freeing. Like, no, I could just be the best me. And I'll work with those that works for.
Right.
I'm never going to switch over the people who hated me when I walked in.
Right.
Does that sound just too odd?
No, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And I don't think if I wouldn't have taken that journey to authenticity and really being myself, there's a lot I would have left on the table. I wouldn't be, doing the stuff that I'm doing now, including this podcast. That I think,
because these are things Eric wants to do.
Yes.
And seems uniquely gifted as Eric to do. And
right.
That sounds too like being too nice to you, but I really think it's been exciting for me to see you grow this way.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Let's get into the book, Selling Sacred Ground. You wrote a book. Yeah. Why did you feel the impetus to write a book?
Okay, so you can cut out whatever you want, but I'll just be honest.
Yeah, go.
I don't think any of my motivations are perfect.
Yeah.
So there's probably good and bad slivers of motivation in anything I do.
Sure.
But I remember the initial spark had nothing to do with real estate or anything. I was at an evening at a restaurant where a longtime friend of ours was starting a restaurant, and he was making his pitch to his investors, but also just sharing his dream. This was like, he's 50 and he's going to open a restaurant.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is amazing at this age to be doing something completely different than you've been doing before. Right. A second act, a third act.
Yeah.
I saw the fire in his eyes, and I was the same age, and I thought, man, how cool to do something different.
Yeah.
So somehow that morphed in my head. What can I do that's different? I don't want to open a restaurant.
Yeah.
But that night I walked out and thought, I want to write a book.
Interesting.
Well, just because you want to write a book doesn't mean you have anything good to write about.
Yeah.
So I think I flopped around for a couple of years, but then I hit on something that I thought is very important to me, but knew it may not be popular. And so in the end, the exercise of writing a book literally might have just only been for me. If no one else benefits
Yeah.
from that book, if that book just disappears. It was a really good experience for me.
I told you this, and you can mark me down as somebody that it impacted because I did not know I did not know the ins and outs of buying and selling.
Yeah.
And it does a great job of explaining it. And this podcast is called The Whole Elephant. We want to see the whole picture of something. We don't want to just see the for sale sign at the front of the house and think we know everything about it. And it takes you into a process that I didn't know. And what I was most taken by was all the points along the way in the process where shady things can happen.
Yes.
Where people can take advantage of other people. That's what caught me when I read it and what people need to be aware of. Do you deal often with shady people, with people that are there to exploit people?
I can only speak from this perspective. I think when people realize it's going to be a fair transaction,
Mm-hmm.
they so welcome it that maybe I don't see a lot of stuff that people do because they seem to so welcome, like, oh, you're just telling me what's wrong, what's right.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not a whole lot of gamesmanship.
Right.
There's still finesse, I hope, and skill. But the welcome reprieve I see in people's eyes of, oh, good. Someone's just going to tell me what's really happening.
Right.
And I can make a good decision.
Right.
And I just think of all those really necessary professions out there where, people, men and women, have worked their whole careers to be really good at something, to do it on someone else's behalf.
Yeah.
And that is not sexy right now in our culture.
Right.
What's sexy is getting a brand, getting a bunch of people to work under you.
Yes.
As if they were somehow extensions of you.
Right.
And what's important is that whatever was done under your brand, and the brand gets credit for it.
Right.
But the person, I just think we're so cheated then, because whether it's that real plumber under your house,
right,
if his specialty is, I can talk people into anything.
Right.
He's not a good plumber.
Right.
He's someone who's good at making money who happens to be a plumber.
Right.
But when you meet that good plumber who just tells you the truth,
right,
and what needs to be done, you're so happy to spend that money.
I'm so grateful in my life that I have an auto mechanic that I trust.
Yes.
I have a guy that I trust. I love him. Whatever he says, I go with. I never feel ripped off.
I don't have that right now.
That is a luxury, and I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, see, that's such a great feeling. And so I don't think real estate's unique in that, or the need for that. But what's different in real estate is we have a fiduciary responsibility, this heightened responsibility, because it involves people's homes.
Right.
So not only, do people supposed to pretend that they're doing what's best for them, that's actually legally the standard we're held to.
Right.
You have to do what's best for your client, not what's best for you before your client.
Right.
But I worry about my industry because I think it's getting pulled away from that.
Right.
And then it's just, there's nothing special about it.
Right. Well, it's a great book. It's called Selling Sacred Ground. I'm promoting it right now as if people are listening. My mom's the only one listening to this, and she already has a copy. But on the off chance that anyone else is listening, you can pick up that book. It really was a great read. I want to jump into, part of my my journey here of trying to see the whole elephant, trying to see other perspectives.
I'm very glad to leave real estate.
Is just talking about faith.
Yeah.
And, open-ended, non-judgmental, agenda-free faith, spirituality, God, why are we here? What is circulating in your brain these days? What can I learn? What can we chat about?
So, such an overused word. But the kingdom of God is reality.
Yeah. I love where this is going already. I'm excited.
Everything else is the only distractions.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's interesting. You can tell I've talked about real estate for 33 years. What I want to talk about, my goal, I'm 58. I'm hoping, this became a goal of mine, I don't know, 15 or 10 years ago. I hope by the time I'm 60, I'm spending a large amount of my time in kingdom work. And I didn't know what that meant then.
Yeah.
But what I really am compelled by is just the kingdom of God. So that's used so often. So what do I mean by that? Imagine you're Paul, right?
The Apostle Paul. We're going back. We're going back in
You're
time,
the Apostle
baby.
Paul.
We're going back.
And unlike you or I at college, he's a brilliant student.
Yeah.
He is a brilliant student. So you have a very bright, very driven Pharisee or clergy. We'll just use a different word than that.
Mm-hmm.
And he is on fire like a zealot. And his understanding of the Old Testament, of his people's scriptures, they are the chosen people. And one day the Messiah is going to come, and there's going to be this kingdom.
Right.
And this weird heretic group pops up. And they had killed this heretic, this guy from Galilee.
Mm-hmm.
And these Jewish people, his own people, there was these little sects that were coming up that were starting to claim he was the Messiah. Well, they obviously don't get they don't get our scriptures. That is not what the Messiah is going to accomplish.
Right.
And he's aggressively trying to put this band of heretics down, squelch it, get rid of it.
Yeah.
By violent means even.
Right.
Till one day, Jesus introduces himself
Yeah.
to Paul. Now, picture, it says he was blind. Picture this God that he had hypothesized his whole life and been reading and devoted to his whole life.
Mm-hmm.
Says, you don't understand me. You
Yeah.
have it all wrong.
Yeah.
These people have it right.
Right.
He goes back and looks at the scriptures completely differently.
Right.
With this mind-boggling story of the Messiah being crucified, naked on a cross. What crazy victory is that? What was accomplished by that? And then this brilliant scholar is able to have the pieces all put together. He's now met the risen Jesus.
Mm.
And the rest of his life, he's just trying to explain the reality of what Jesus has accomplished as the risen Lord. His kingdom is here.
Right.
And I used to hate reading anything by Paul because I thought, God, he can't stay on subject. The sentences are going all over.
Yeah. People accuse him of being a schizophrenic.
But it's just, we were literally taken out of the kingdom of darkness and made alive and brought into reality.
Right.
And the reality isn't, it's so unfortunate, and I think this is more American cultured church, where we've come up with this transactional approach to accept Jesus, you get a ticket, you die, you go to heaven.
Yeah.
You put that ticket in your back pocket and you go about your business.
Right.
Are you a Christian? Yeah, I accepted him.
Right.
I was at Woodleaf
Right.
I was 17.
The win-loss Western mindset.
Yeah.
There's a winner and there's a loser. There's
I'm covered,
heaven and hell. There's
and I'm going to go about my business this way.
right.
Where the Bible takes us right back to what the original plan was in creation. We're created in the image of God to be stewards of creation,
Mm-hmm.
to reflect the praises of creation back to Him, and direct His leadership and stewardship to creation. Our real humanity is in this relationship in this world. It isn't just heaven in the future.
Right.
It's this kingdom now.
Yeah.
And what Jesus accomplished is a restoration of that. It wasn't like the fall of man and God said, oh, that whole creation thing? Nah.
Right.
No, He's putting it back in order.
Right.
The way He intended it to be. Please don't be offended by he.
Right.
I am showing my age. I'm sure there's better pronouns and all that.
Sure.
So don't let that
I was
throw you.
talking to a friend the other day, and we were talking about the idea of heaven and hell and that win-loss mentality. And, I personally, I can't fathom a God that at the end of all this, when every knee bows and every tongue confesses that Jesus Christ is Lord, that He will then say, okay, now you guys go this way, you guys come this way, based on how we did this thing called life. I can't fathom a God that is full of love and grace to the point where that love and grace won't cover everything, right? So from that premise, she then said to me, well, then why are we here? Like, then if this isn't the test to get into heaven, what is our purpose here then? And my answer was simple: to experience the kingdom of God here on earth. That's why when you said kingdom of God, I was like, let's go.
Yeah.
Because I just had this conversation. It's because it's not a start-stop timeline of we're just hanging out here,
right,
accepting Jesus into our hearts, and then we finally get to experience Him at the end.
Yeah.
We're alive. We're here. Our souls are here. We're living. The kingdom of God is available and present and within our reach here. How do we find it? It's our responsibility to not only live in it, but show it to others and to experience it with others and all those things.
And the obedience asked of us isn't further testing. It's further enjoyment of reality.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
And, but I will, back to your other thing where you can't imagine a God who could do X, Y, Z.
Yeah, let's go into it.
I certainly don't want a God that is limited by my ability to understand.
Totally.
As far as heaven and hell, I do think the choice of eternity is unbelievably given to us.
Mm-hmm.
I don't, and I'll side with C.S. Lewis in that, and in The Great Divorce, at least one place where either we will say to God, thy will be done, or he'll say to us, thy will be done.
Right.
But you're right.
But even if that's true,
I certainly don't want to spend the next half hour talking about hell. So
no, but it's cool. But even if that's true, I'm never going to be able to. I don't want to be able to define what that means.
yeah,
I don't want it to be because in the 70s people started saying you have to accept Christ into your heart. That's what we're defining it to be.
right. And it was again that odd transaction thing that we came up with. N.T. Wright talks about it great, where Epicureanism and deism get so oddly turned over in the American church and just come out in different ways, where there's an odd fundamentalism that comes up.
Mm-hmm.
And the term, well, I believe in the fundamentals. I mean,
Right.
any coach got to know the fundamentals, but that's not what they mean.
Right.
There's this almost anti-intellectual, suspicious of anything academic or rigorous study of the scripture. Just, gosh darn it, it's in the King James Bible, and that's what I believe. I'm like,
Right.
so you prefer the translation that was done 400 years ago, and all the work that's been done since then, out the window for you?
Right. It's ridiculous. No, for sure. It's like Pastor Dave says this all the time, but it's like, the people in your life who decided to get their last haircut in the 80s. Like in the 80s, they
That's
picked
me.
a haircut. They picked a haircut. They're like, I'm going with this cut the rest of my life.
That's
This is
me.
the cut. I'm not changing it. And faith and religion can't work that way.
No.
It can't work that way just because our understanding of other things is growing. And as our understanding of other things is growing, then our understanding of religion has to adapt and grow with that.
And I don't think there's anything magic to we're more mature as a culture than they were 500 years ago. I think every generation is called to examine the scriptures and mine them for treasure. And the ability to mine them for treasure was just as good
Yeah.
1,800 years ago.
Yeah, but it's not that we're better, but we have to read it contextually.
Yes.
And not apply the same rules and logic to now.
Yeah. I get to preach a sermon next year, and I'm so excited about it. And it's this whole thing of, wow, Paul is asking so much of this person.
Right.
But now that I'm studying it, it's as if he's saying, this seems like a hard thing, but if you do this, it just opens up your understanding and your enjoyment of the kingdom that much more.
Right.
So if you think the kingdom of God is 40 acres and a mule, there's a whole countryside out there that you can go roam.
Yeah.
But there is stuff we have to give up
Right.
to go there.
Right.
That was probably a horrible 40 acres and a mule. But I meant by limited size.
Yeah.
It's as limitless as God's intention for creation was from the beginning.
Right.
And in Genesis, he created this cosmos and then said, I'm going to live here with you guys.
Yeah.
And that's the intention of the whole scriptural story, biblical story, is how he's restoring that.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing.
And we'll just limit it to Christianity in the U.S., I guess. I'll let you set the parameters of how you want to talk about it. But Christianity, what are we getting right and what are we getting wrong right now in your eyes?
Oh well, I'm. That's probably way above my pay grade. Um, what I could observe is, I think, for instance, in politics right now, since 1980, there's been a real push for evangelical Christians in America to be attached to political authority or power.
Yeah.
And it sounds weird because I was really young back then, but I've always thought, this is not good.
Yeah.
As soon as the church gets political power, we seem to screw it up every time in history.
Yeah.
And I don't know why we would be any different. So,
going back to Paul in the early church, they tried to do that in no ways. I mean, Jesus tried to do that in no ways.
Yeah.
Influence the politics of Rome.
Yeah, it's amazing. So
to the point where Paul's writing letters from prison, and the letters aren't saying, "Come get me out of prison."
No.
The letters don't say, "Hey, you guys got to go overthrow something to get me out of prison." The letters are saying, "Hey, while I'm here, let's be nice to each other. Let's experience the kingdom of God no matter what's happening."
And even more, he says, in Colossians, he says to him, he's saying, "No, it's for your good.
Yeah.
This is for your good."
Yeah.
It's not. Don't be embarrassed that your leader's in prison.
Yeah.
God's doing great things with it. I mean,
yeah.
That's crazy talk, right?
Right.
But that is believing each day that Jesus knows what he's doing. You're following him, and he'll really do what's best.
Right.
That is just such humble, sacrificial trust. And you're right, that has very little political power, but it sure is salty.
Right.
And hard to ignore.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful that there's going to be a decoupling of addiction to some sort of political power or attraction to political power in the church. That would be great.
I mean, I think the only hope is future generations.
Yeah, maybe.
I think it's so ingrained right now that I'm not sure it can be taken away.
Yeah.
Fully.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying. Yeah. But God can do anything.
Yeah.
So that's kind of exciting. And if I could be a teeny drop of that, like, look what the kingdom is doing today.
Yeah.
And draw attention to what God is actually doing today in our midst. And the crazy part is, all along we've had a job, a position in that kingdom as the image of God. So I don't think there's a higher calling for human beings than to be images of God in this world.
Yeah.
And not, I don't know what we think the image of God is, but it's kind of scary. It's usually sacrificial and very serving oriented.
Yeah. Those are not, let me broaden it a little bit. Those are also principles that are found other places that people have discovered outside religion. How do you view those things? Christians aren't the only kind people. Christians aren't the only service-oriented people.
Yeah.
Christians aren't the only sacrificial people. What does that look like to you when you see other people experiencing or living out those kingdom principles, but not necessarily under the banner of Christianity? What does that mean to you?
There's no political correctness in this, but I'm like, man, that is amazing because if I could tell, if I didn't have the Spirit of God, changing me and doing something,
Right.
I wouldn't have come to the conclusion of, I need to serve other people. I think I would just be a selfish. I know I'm already selfish as I am. I would just be more selfish.
Yeah.
So I'm amazed by people who are just naturally giving, naturally sacrificial.
Right.
Like a teen mom.
Yeah.
Do you know how many hours they spend?
Yeah. Okay. But see, I would say, and I don't know how people would define me or put me into a box of a category, but I would look at it as God revealing himself to all people, to every single human, through creation, through whatever. It doesn't have to be through the path of Christianity to discover these kingdom values, because they are permeated through all of nature, all of time, all of everything, and people are connecting to them whether they know it's God or not. Because I am way more interested in seeing somebody who is a self-described atheist or Muslim or whatever, non-Christian, and going, hey, look, that's a Christian value, or that's a kingdom value. I do that too. Isn't that great?
Yeah.
As opposed to labeling them as lost and that I somehow need to save them. I continually see people outside of Christianity, and I'm like, lost, that they have a beautiful family and a beautiful monogamous relationship, and they're serving people, and they're lost. They seem to be doing the same things I'm doing. Am I okay with the fact that they're not calling it Christianity?
Which goes back to our odd transactional approach of, no, you have to admit you're a sinner.
Yes.
You just admit you're a sinner, and Jesus is your Lord. You get this ticket, and then you don't worry about it.
Right.
But the life, the kingdom life we're called to, is really lived here.
Yeah.
This is the beginning of eternity, and you're right. How people discover that on their own is amazing.
Yeah.
But then I say, wouldn't they like to know the designer would be so pleased that they're enjoying his design?
Yes.
And that he has, what they're doing is actually...
Right.
So,
but then you're getting into whole discussions of brain function and cultural, how you grew up in what cultures you grew up in. It, like those things can be so ingrained in somebody. I don't feel a big need to change their minds towards Christianity. I have a bigger want and need just to talk about those kingdom values and not have to define them on my terms.
And that's, you're an artist.
Yeah.
And how we ever disassociated art from the church is just really sad.
Really sad.
So you're right. People tapping into just the natural beauty of creation. Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
It's big stuff.
Yeah. But that the kingdom is there to be enjoyed, absolutely. But yeah, I'm not gonna take away that we do have to accept the Savior.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that in some sort of cultural American way. I don't
Yeah,
care where
no,
you are in the world.
I think I'm on the journey of figuring out what I think that means.
And I think
because I was raised in the American win-loss, and I find that to be false.
Yeah.
So redefining it is part of why I'm here, why I want to talk to people, why I want to figure it out. So
at work, I work very intensely, and then I'll take a break. So YouTube clips are my favorite break right now, and I'll see some stupid things.
Yeah.
And then I'm looking at it, and I'm like, Mother Teresa. I've literally never heard her voice before. So today I watched,
Yeah.
a little 3-minute blurb, and all she was going to lead a prayer, but before the prayer, she was just pointing out when I was naked, did you clothe me? When I was hungry, did you feed me?
Right.
Just those very basics.
Right.
And you're right. There's people who are absolutely doing that.
Yeah.
Who don't have any idea that that's a Christian ideal.
Right. Right.
But it is the ideal. And that is the way the kingdom is made.
Yeah.
And we're made to live that way in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Craig, thank you for doing this, man. I told you after I read the book and kind of, know your journey. We've talked about your journey. After I read the book, I said, you do real estate with the precision of a chemist and the heart of a theologian. I still believe that. You're an amazing man. And I appreciate you doing this and being here to have a chat.
I love spending time with you. So this was just like one of our lunches. Thank you very much.
Thank you.